Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm just doing a little video this morning before I take my wife to work about tournaments again because I ran my tournament session that I was talking about in the earlier video, and so I just wanted to maybe go over some things that I had observed and noticed. Number one, just because this was sort of this is part of my disposable Disciples of Bonebreaker sect campaign that I've been doing. So I've been sort of organizing things differently. So I basically have a bunch of little packets like this for different sects that I've been working on, and that's mainly what I've been going off during this campaign. I have my main campaign folder too, but I've been just kind of working out all these different sects, and I printed up some rules from the rule book, um, and I keep my sort of campaign notes right here. And everything else I was working off of was the location map. I haven't put it in my binder yet, so this was the arenas that they were fighting in. This was sort of my rough sketch of the villa where it took place, and this was my tournament thing where they so I could see who was fighting who, and there were some last minute changes because there was all kind of like behind the scenes stuff going on. So I had to make some last minute adjustments. Um, so it went pretty well. I did notice some things that I would improve next time. So I set up a tournament where there were like 5 or 6 different arenas, and each one had all kinds of things in it. So the it was for a sect that I've just for right now called Crocodile Sect, and the leader is White Haired Crocodile, and his whole thing is he's really good with animals. So he has an arena that's like 2 feet of water with crocodiles in it. He's got one with cages all around it with tigers that he would slowly release into the arena. He had one that was no animals at all, but I'm sorry, there was a pit with snakes in the middle, but the real threat was around the edge of the arena where he had a bunch of fire lances aimed at the competitors, and anybody who backed up to the wall would get shot by the fire lances. And so the thing I liked about this one was you kind of had to, if the fight went on, it would become a matter of avoiding the pit but also avoiding the wall. So controlling the ground would become very important. Now, in that particular fight, one of the characters just leapt across the pit and stabbed the other one in the neck, and then everything just kind of really quickly devolved from there. So I'm trying to think of what other pits they were in this session. I think we had 1 or 2 other pits. There was one with some other uh, sort of like the Chinese hexagrams, but they were all like little slots in the ground, and you could fall through and into a spiked pit. So uh, the setup was the players got invited there, and they arrived at the villa, and there were other competitors, so they were kind of all feeling each other out, and they deduced that somebody in the competition was actually a really powerful master in disguise, and so and she had come there to get revenge against one of the competitors. So they um, they tracked her down, and they talked to her, and they negotiated basically a deal where they were going to ensure that she got to fight the person she wanted to fight, provided she like pulled out of the competition. And so that helped them because the party was all chi level 3 and she's chi level 7. So she was like the person who like just would have could have easily wiped the floor with one of the players, that they avoided because they were using sort of you know sort of role play and negotiation and investigation to find out what was going on. And there were other instances like that. Now, one thing that did happen though that I didn't account for is one of the players, uh, her character wasn't interested in participating in the competition, and she got into a fight with one of the other player characters, and so she ended up leaving the villa. And I realized when she did that, if I had it like this villa took place in a region where I haven't really fleshed it out as much as other parts of the setting. If I had spent more time fleshing out that region, I would have had a lot more interesting things going on with her character, I think. And I wasn't quite as prepared for that, so I had to do stuff on the fly, which is fine. But it just what I think it would have been more interesting if I had anticipated that move and thought of ways to make the area itself engaging. So next time around, I'm one of the things I'm going to be aiming for if I do another competition scenarios. What happens if like half the party says, "No, what? We're not going to participate. We're going to go to the local tavern." How do I, how do I have enough material at the local tavern to keep them engaged, that sort of thing, or at the or village nearby or whatever. I want to make sure I flesh out the whole area around the tournament next time. So that was, to me, that was the most useful lesson, because I had never had a tournament where that had happened before, and I should have anticipated it, but it just didn't occur to me that, oh, somebody might just take off and go somewhere else. Um, so the other characters were all sort of involved in things. So one character was snooping around the grounds. He wasn't in the competition, but he was investigating. Look, the prize was a manual of an ancient sect that had sort of died out, and so he was looking around for this ancient manual. There was another player was kind of going around picking fights to gauge people and get a sense of their strengths and weaknesses. So overall, it was pretty interesting. I liked the way that the arena setup worked this time. I liked having different arenas. I liked the sect that was hosting it being all about sort of animals and using those in the fights. And one aspect that sort of came up during one of the battles was the sect master is, not only does he have these animals, but he adores them. So one of the competitors turned on one of his crocodiles to attack it, and so when at the end of the match the crocodile had grabbed her and just started going into a death roll, he didn't call the match because he was so angry that she had hurt his crocodile. So little things like that, which the players noticed, were kind of I don't know, that was a moment that seemed to work pretty well. So. And in the end, they ended up saving her. One of the other players grabbed her, and they actually formed a useful alliance with her sister. So, but yeah, it was a fun campaign, a fun session, and I think the big thing that made it really work was having different power levels for the competitors. The players really didn't know who they were going up against. If everybody they went up against was their level, there wouldn't have been any surprises. But because some were below them, some were above them, and some were just right, they had no idea what to expect, and they were really like all they had to go by in most cases was a name. And so if somebody had a fearsome name, they would kind of get nervous and maybe start looking into them. So they had to fight one guy named Broken Faced Ogre, and he was the one they shuffled off to the woman who wanted revenge because she was apparently out to kill him. And also this has become a springboard for future games, because the manual is this really coveted object that everybody wants. So as soon as they got it, it was announced that their sect had it, and on their way home, they were getting attacked and being hunted by other sects trying to acquire the manual. So and again, the guy that put this that sort of organized the tournament, he has broader aims here. So it's interesting to sort of see this unfold. So I don't know. It's really early, and I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to cut it there. But if anybody has any questions regarding the tournament session or tournaments in general, just post them in the comments. I'm certainly curious if anybody else has done tournaments in their game, how they've done them. Again, I've noticed that tournaments are about 50-50. Like, people either like them or they don't. So a lot of people, I think, don't use them, which means you don't get there's not many opportunities to discuss them. So one thing I have noticed, players that like them, when you run a tournament, they get real excited. So it's maybe not quite as exciting for the players who aren't as into them. So I don't use them all the time, but once in a while, I like to throw them throw them into the mix if I have a player or two that are really into them. So, anyways, I'll get going, and I will talk to you later.